My Hero Academia's plot is simple. In a world where superheroes are real, a nobody kid wants to become one. That's it, that's the plot. Roll credits. Stop, wait, no, there's more. You see, while My Hero Academia's plot on a ground level is basic, it's what the author does with the base layer that makes it amazing. You see, with that beautiful cranium of his, Kohei Horikoshi takes basic, well-known, and a lot of the time overused narratives and rearranges and tweaks them to make them feel new and exciting. I mean, if you look at the story arcs and inner conflicts of some of the most beloved characters in the series, you can easily see the tropes they fall under. Daddy issues, god complex, too weak, living up to expectations, money. All of these character arcs and motives come a dime a dozen in modern media. Hell, even the rivalries can be seen as a copy-paste with Goruto and Veggie over here. But somehow, Horikoshi knows how to manipulate and change them in just the right way that makes these stories gorgeous pieces of narrative, for which me and thousands of others pine over on a daily basis. But within this cacophony of genius, Horikoshi has pulled off one of the greatest narrative moves for which I don't think I've seen anywhere else. He gave Tomura Shigaraki, the main villain and antagonist of the story, a hero's journey. Now if you're thinking,
what the hell is this guy on about? The villain is on a hero's journey. That doesn't even make sense.
Just hear me out, okay? I don't mean Tomura Shigaraki is on a journey to become a hero. What I mean is, Shigaraki is going through the exact stages and narrative journey nearly every protagonist in fiction goes through. It's a classic narrative formula that has been used in countless movies, TV shows, books, and stories in general. This formula has even been used in beloved blockbuster phenomena such as Star Wars and The Lord of the Rings, and it is commonly referred to as the hero's journey. And that's exactly what it is, a journey the hero takes. But Horikoshi has managed to use these exact narrative beats and applied them to the villain. To understand what I mean, you must first understand what exactly is the hero's journey. Well, you see, the hero's journey is a base template for storytelling which follows a hero who goes on an adventure and in a decisive crisis wins a victory and then comes home changed or transformed. This adventure can be anything from a battle against an intergalactic empire to a person just looking for love. The circumstances and stories don't always have to be the same, but what does is the story beats. According to Christopher Vogler, author of The Writer's Journey, the hero's journey can be broken down into 12 stages, or 12 story beats. Each of these stages acts as a different phase of the overall journey, and each one has its own dedicated purpose. Some can be used for world building, others for character development. Now why this is truly fascinating is because this formula is a template for the hero, the protagonist. It's designed in such a way to build suspense and drama for the character you would be more than likely rooting for. It's designed for the Luke Skywalkers, the Frodo Baggins, the Midoriyas. The villains are never the ones to undergo this journey, because it's designed for heroes. But this is the genius behind Shigaraki, and why I believe he is such a great villain, because he's the only villain I've actually seen to undergo his own journey like this. He's not an all-powerful force from the get-go. He grows, learns, and develops the exact same way the heroes do. And he does it step by step in the exact same way any protagonist would, starting in the ordinary world. The ordinary world is the very beginning of the story, when the protagonist is living out their everyday lives. This is the part of the story before the adventure actually begins. It introduces us to the character about to go on the adventure before there's any sign of adventure. The ordinary world allows us to get to know the hero and identify with him before the journey begins. It gives us the opportunity to identify with the hero's motivation, problems, and urges, while showing us unique characteristics and flaws that make him three-dimensional. It introduces us to the character's ordinary, what their day-to-day reality is made up of. For Tomura Shigaraki, this is his life before his quirk activated. Before, he lived a relatively normal life. He was the youngest child of the Shimura family, being raised by both of his parents alongside his sister Hana. The one discerning feature about his childhood is that his father used to punish him constantly for wanting to become a hero, forcing young Tomura out of the house and into their back garden alone. While this isn't normal behaviour in the My Hero world, it was the only life Tomura knew, and thus is his ordinary. There's no sign of adventure or change. This is until Tomura's quirk activates for the first time, which brings us to the second stage of the hero's journey, the call of adventure. Once we understand a character's ordinary, then the idea of an adventure can be introduced. The call of adventure is exactly that, where the character gets the first offer to go on the adventure. This offer doesn't have to be literal, however. as the call isn't always a choice. It can be a multitude of things, such as a death, a sudden storm, the arrival of the villain, or even a man's dying words. The call of adventure is merely the character's first introduction to the notion of leaving their ordinary. It's the spark that will eventually light up and guide the hero towards change. In Shigaraki's case, it's the activation of his quirk. When Shigaraki's quirk activates, his ordinary life begins to disappear, as in an extremely unfortunate and terrifying turn of events, he ends up murdering his entire family. This is Shigaraki's first glimpse into the life of villainy, and thus is his call of adventure. This is the first sign that Shigaraki could become a villain. Shigaraki still has to make the choice whether or not to accept this call, which brings us to our next point, and onto the third stage of the hero's journey, refusal of the call. This isn't always the case, but oftentimes when the character is about to go on the journey, they initially refuse the call. This initial refusal could be due to any number of reasons, but it's a refusal nonetheless. The hero's refusal is a valuable stage, because it communicates the risks involved in the journey that lies ahead. It familiarizes the audience with the potential dangers of the journey, adding to the suspense and to the weight of the hero's decision. Shigaraki's refusal is when he wanders the streets looking for help. During this stage, Shigaraki doesn't believe he is evil or a villain. He just wants guidance, someone to look out for him, to be the father figure he never had. His attempts at finding someone to look out for him are his refusal of his journey. He doesn't want to go on the adventure of being a villain. He wants to retain his ordinary life the best he can. But just like every other character who has gone down the hero's journey, this refusal is ultimately futile, and Shigaraki's destiny to become a villain has been set. But not before receiving some guidance, reaching the next stage of his journey, stage 4, meeting the mentor. Meeting the mentor is quite self-explanatory. This is the phase in the story where the character undergoing their journey meets the person who is going to act as their guide, i.e. their mentor. This mentor provides the essential lessons and training the hero needs to better face the journey's tests and ordeals. While this is phase 4 of the hero's journey, it can actually take place any time between phase 1 and 3. For Tomura, this is his encounter with All For One, who takes in the young lost child off the streets and acts as not only his father figure, but also his inspiration in becoming a villain. Typically, the mentor figure is wise and experienced, making them great teachers. And who is more wiser and experienced in villainy than the symbol of villainy himself? All For One is Tomura Shigaraki's wise old mentor. But even with a mentor to guide him, Tomura is yet to fully accept his role in this adventure, which brings us to phase 5, crossing the first threshold. So the hero has accepted the call and gained a mentor. Now it's time to take those first steps into the journey to greatness. These initial steps are known as crossing the first threshold. Basically, this is the part of the story where the hero takes up their arms and officially begins their adventure. It's the character's first steps outside their known world of the ordinary and into the unknown of the extraordinary. This event should re-establish the central dramatic question that propels the story forward. In Shigaraki's case, this is his first step down the path of villainy, his first intentional crime. After two men mock Tomura's scarred and dried up face, he decides to kill both men in cold blood. This action is Tomura's first step into villainy. This transition is also verified by Tomura's change of outfit. This is the first time we see him wearing his iconic full body hand getup, a visual indicator that things have changed. Upon completing this transition past the first threshold, the adventure truly begins. But Tomura's journey isn't one of solitude. On his path, he's accompanied by friends and hunted by foes. This leads us into the next and longest phase of the hero's journey: tests, allies, enemies. The tests, allies, enemy segment of the tale is generally the longest part of any hero's journey, as it covers a vast array of content. This is the part in the story that not only puts the hero on trial to see what they are truly capable of, but it is also the section where new characters are introduced into the story and developed, whether as a friend or a new foe. This is also the section where we begin to see the hero grow and develop. The character slowly begins to show signs that they're changing into the person they will become at the end of the journey. For Shigaraki, this is the majority of scenes we've seen him in so far. The USJ attack, the Hosu City incident, Kamino Ward, and the Shihei Saikai arc. All of these events act as Shigaraki's trials, as after every incident, he develops and changes. The USJ attack acts as his first taste of failure. After Hosu, he fails again and realizes to better himself he needs allies. which is where Dabi, Togata, Spinner, Compress, and Magna come in. After Kamino, he develops even further. Rather than being a brash and irritating child, he matures and acts more like an underground leader. The Shihei Saikai arc shows him finally embodying the title of leader, as he initially fails with the death of Magna, but he moves on and secretly aids in the takedown of the Shihei Saikai, all while stealing their most powerful weapon. The foes he meets on the way are the heroes of the world and the other villains who want to see him fail. Shigaraki's end goal and the entire purpose of his journey is to become the new symbol of villainy. To do this, he will use the allies and abilities he has gained in this phase of the journey. This culmination of skills, friendships, and new abilities leads our character into the next and 7th phase of their journey, approaching the Inmost Cave. Now, the Inmost Cave isn't a literal cave. The Inmost Cave is the heart of the world and the journey, the point in which the hero will encounter one of their biggest ordeals, one of their greatest conflicts. So the approach to the Inmost Cave is the preparation before this conflict itself, where the hero and his allies prepare for the trials ahead. In Shigarakis Quest, this is his encounter with Gigantomechia and the Doctor, All for One's 2 most trusted allies. Shigaraki is faced with his toughest trial, to defeat Gigantomechia in a fight to win his and the Doctor's trust. This will not only make one of the most powerful beings on the planet his loyal servant, but it would also grant Shigaraki the abilities he needs to achieve his goal. He could gain the unbeatable quirk All for One. If he could gain this ability, then he would be a terrifying force to be reckoned with that has the potential to change society. And so, Shigaraki approaches the cave ever closer and closer as he and his allies enter their monthly-long battle against a beast known as Gigantomechia in the hopes of earning his respect. It is in entering the Inmost Cave that our character reaches the next leg of his journey and one of the biggest trials they will face: the ordeal. The ordeal is the central life or death crisis of the story, where the entire journey reaches the brink of failure as the character confronts their most difficult challenge and experiences death. This death can be literal, metaphorical, or sometimes both. It can be the death of an ally, the death of their home, or their own death. In a rom-com, this is the part of the story where the two lovers break up and go their separate ways, ergo, the death of their relationship. Facing this obstacle in the journey adds drama and tension as it begins to become abundantly clear that there is no guarantee of our hero's success. Shigaraki's ordeal is his and the League of Villains' fight against the Meta Liberation Army in Daika City. In the midst of battling Gigantomechia, the Meta Liberation Army makes a declaration of war against the League of Villains, forcing them to come to Daika City and face their elimination. Upon arrival in the city, the League is attacked by hordes of countless goons. Each member of the League faces their toughest conflict to date, and multiple members, like Togata and Twice, are brought to the brink of death in the onslaught. Shigaraki himself loses multiple of his fingers, which up to this point were believed to be the crux of his power. The death Shigaraki faces, however, is reluctantly not a literal one, but rather internal. During his fight with the leader of the Meta Liberation Army, Redestro, Shigaraki has flashbacks to his childhood and of his origin. It is revealed that these memories of his past had been suppressed into his subconscious, and through his struggle and fight with Redestro, he unwittingly unlocked them. These memories show us the significance of the hands attached to Shigaraki's iconic suit, as each hand belongs to a different member of his family, the most substantial of which is his father's, the first man he ever intentionally killed. Upon having this epiphany, alongside awakening the full potential of his quirk, Shigaraki destroys his father's hand. This is the death Shigaraki faces, the death of Tenko Shimura. By disintegrating his father's hand, he is destroying everything it stood for and the significance it held. No longer is Shigaraki being restrained by his past, and thus, the person that is Tenko Shimura dies, being replaced by the new king of villainy, Tomura Shigaraki. Shigaraki survived death and overcame his greatest adversity. He defeated Redestro, which brings us to the 9th phase of his journey, the reward. Upon surviving their most grueling trial, the hero can finally claim the reward they originally sought. This reward can come in many forms. It could be the seizing of a legendary sword. It could be irreplaceable knowledge they need for a future endeavor. It could even be the reconciliation of 2 ex-lovers after previous failed attempt at love. Whatever the consequences of the ordeal is, the hero will leave with some form of reward. Usually, it is the object they initially sought after during the Inmost Cave, the material that will ensure their overall victory in their journey. Shigaraki's reward is far greater than we would initially think. The entire purpose of Shigaraki's crusade against the Meta Liberation Army was to free their captured comrade and arms dealer, Jiren. So, it would be easy to assume that his reward after this encounter is the destruction of the Meta Liberation Army and the freedom of his friend. This is true. Shigaraki does defeat the Meta Liberation Army, and he does end up freeing Jiren. But in doing so, he inadvertently ends up proving himself to both Gigantomechia and the Doctor, achieving his goal at the Inmost cave and obtaining the components necessary to finish his journey. The real icing on the cake is after the conflict, the remaining members of the Meta Liberation Army join Shigaraki and his comrades, increasing the number of members in his cause by the thousands. So not only has Shigaraki gained the trust and support of Gigantomechia and the Doctor, making him a stifling force, but he has also gained an entire army, truly making him utterly terrifying. In receiving this power, he has officially gained all the skills and resources necessary to achieve his goal. Shigaraki has achieved everything he needs, and so he can enter the next phase and travel on the road back. While the ordeal and the reward were important and vital aspects of the hero's journey, the road back reminds our hero of why they began this journey in the first place. This phase should re-establish the central dramatic question, pushing the hero back into action. This push could come from something like a ticking clock threatening destruction, or it could be an internal decision that must be made by the hero. For whatever reason, the hero has to make their way back onto the path they initially set out on. Shigaraki's end goal has always been to become the new symbol of villainy. And what's the best way to become the most terrifying force in My Hero Academia? By having the ability to give and take quirks, of course. Shigaraki's road back is accepting the doctor's surgery and suffering through months of torment in order to gain the quirk All for One. It's only a matter of time before the heroes realize what's going on with the League of Villains. So Shigaraki's ticking clock is whether or not he can have the quirk and the other abilities associated with it transferred to him in time. If he could achieve this goal, then his journey would be essentially complete, and there would be no stopping the new King of Villains. Of course, it's never that simple. Before the hero can finally reach their goal and achieve everything they've worked towards, they must first get past one last hurdle: the resurrection. The resurrection is the last and most dangerous encounter the hero will face throughout their entire journey, their final life and death ordeal. This conflict should display all the skills and abilities the hero has learned up to this point, showing us just how much they have actually developed from the person they were before this adventure began. This phase is the true final test for the hero. This is where they will truly achieve the heroic status and embody the definition of a hero. Their allies and friends can join in this conflict and aid the hero, but in the end, it must be the hero who performs the final and last act that wins the overall conflict. This final act could be defeating the main threat to the world, or it could even be a sacrificial action needed to finish a final mission. No matter what it is, the hero must be the one who performs said action. This final conflict is actually the current arc in the My Hero Academia manga. The heroes have waged war on the villains by launching a full frontal assault on their bases in the Jakku General Hospital and the Gunga Mountain Villa. This fight has been set up to be the biggest, most gruesome battle in the series so far, with big time players on both sides being mortally wounded and killed in the ongoing conflict. Shigaraki's quirk transfer gets interrupted mid-operation, and the process only reaches 75% completion. However, the main portion of the transfer seems to have worked, as Shigaraki demonstrates his new power in terrifying fashion. In this fight, Shigaraki is currently facing off against Endeavor, Midoriya, Bakugo, Gran Torino, and Aizawa, all at the same time. This is undoubtedly his biggest fight and will ultimately end up with the greatest mark on society the world has ever seen. From the looks of everything, it can only end in horror for our heroes, which, from Shigaraki's perspective, is the ultimate goal. And all of this brings us to the final phase of the hero's journey, and the very last thing Shigaraki needs to do to fulfill his destiny: the return with Elixir. The return with the elixir is the final reward earned on the hero's journey. The elixir can be a great treasure, love, wisdom, or simply the triumph in becoming a hero. The return signals a celebration of the journey's end. In most stories, the return with elixir completes the cycle of this particular journey. Storylines are resolved, peace and prosperity is brought to the world, and the hero can now embark on a new life, forever influenced by the journey travelled. In Shigaraki's case, this section has actually not been reached yet. We are currently still in the resurrection phase of his journey, and until he survives this phase, he can't enter the return. However, this doesn't mean we can't predict what his return with the elixir would consist of, as we already know the purpose of his overall journey. Shigaraki's return with the elixir would not be the destruction of hero society or to rule the world. No, his return would rather be the elimination of the symbol of peace. Shigaraki not only wants to become a symbol of his own, but he wants to surpass the previous symbol of villainy, to become even greater. And what else would make him far superior than his predecessor than killing the one man his master couldn't? All Might. In killing All Might, he would complete his long-awaited journey and cement himself in history as the man who killed the symbol, the one man who beat All Might, something One For All himself couldn't accomplish. By the end of his journey, I believe Shigaraki will be the one to bring an end to All Might's life, which will also bring an end to his journey. From the humble beginning in his ordinary life to his eventual return with the elixir, Tomura Shigaraki's journey from innocent young child to unstoppable behemoth as the king of villains is absolutely amazing, because that's what it is, a journey. So many villains in modern media are just powerhouses and absolute forces to be reckoned with. Sure, it's great to make them trending and fearsome, but they are missing out on so much detail and character development that could help the audience engage with them even more. So many times we see a good person turn bad and then they play up the whole "it could have been any one of us" card. No, it couldn't have. One bad day does not make you an all-powerful villain. No one person can gain that much power by themselves. Just like in becoming a hero, it takes growth, development, failures, and persistence to achieve this level of notoriety and power. How many times have we seen a good guy turn bad, and the next time we see them, they're an all-powerful supervillain? How? How did this happen? What happened to them? How long did this take? There are so many unanswered questions that could be just as interesting, if not more interesting, than the hero's journey. This is the reason why Shigaraki works as a villain, and why Horikoshi's writing is up there with some of the greats. In the beginning, Shigaraki isn't all-powerful, he isn't strong, hell, he isn't even that smart, but as the series goes on we get to watch him grow, develop and learn, just like the rest of the cast. He doesn't start off all-powerful, because no one does. And because of this, when he does get power, he becomes the most horrifying force anyone has ever seen. This is why Shigaraki is such an incredible character. And this has been Tomura Shigaraki's villainous journey. So while I was making this video, the Lunchtime Crew hit 200 subscribers. And that's insane! I just wanted to take this time to say thank you all so much for the support. It really means a lot. I mean, I almost lost my mind at the 100 subs, and now we somehow managed to double that? That's crazy! Making these videos honestly brings me so much joy, so to see people like the content I make just brings it to the next level. I honestly can't thank you all enough. For those of you that are regulars on my channel, I left a little Easter egg for you guys in this video and I hope it brought a little smile to your faces. And if you're new here and managed to make it this far, I mean, why not like, comment, subscribe? You're already in this deep, too late to turn back now. But again, thank you all so much. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye bye.